Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Returning to the show is Adam Heist. We're here again to do a broad match show. So yeah, Adam, welcome back. Lots to cover.
Yeah, definitely, man. Fresh off your vacation, and I'm settling into Austin, so looks like we were both grounded and ready to rock again.
Yes, and you like before the call, you said that we'll do a bit of debriefing around Seller Sessions and both of our obsessions now with AI. We've gone all in for different reasons on different things. But yeah, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, man. Well, I guess let's talk about seller sessions. I think what was interesting this time, yeah, I think you know this, but part of it is probably because you're my friend, but I've always
Mm.
enjoyed seller sessions. I think the city of London in May is just fun, and I like the energy. The seller community is unique versus a lot of the US based events, so I think there's just some contextual things that make it nice. But you just always iterate and bring really good speakers, and I find that I get most of the nuggets out of seller sessions. But frankly, this one was wildly different, and you can maybe talk about the format change. But it was funny. I was kind of, even you being one of my best friends, I was like, this could either be a fucking disaster or it could be spectacular. And I didn't even know. I
Yeah.
was like, hey, if someone's gonna pull it off, it's gonna be Danny. But it was a little bit one of those like, we'll do it live and see what happens. It was kind of one of those, but I'll maybe walk us through your thought process on the changes that were made, and we can kind of talk about how it actually transpired, whether it was a disaster or whether it was spectacular, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've talked about it enough on the show because most people understand, they can hear the other episodes. But I think the key point, like what you said, it could be a disaster, right? And that was the risk. And the reason I can't get up every year to do seller sessions in that same format, like I just don't have it in me. It actually, the process makes me miserable because you're always with the bar of selling out, right? So we sold out all the other ones, and so there comes the pressure. And the other thing is the venues, like, so everyone, I don't have to keep repeating the ticket price, but we have a model, like most people, that the events can't work unless it's subsidized by sponsors. That's it, brings the ticket price down. The second thing is I was 2 months late out the gate. The new ticketing site become a 25 grand black hole, and then was actually reconciling in the end in spreadsheets. It was like a disaster from beginning to end. And then at the beginning of beginning of April, I didn't know whether I'm going to have any of my businesses left, because the situation with Databril, that started to unpack there. And then tickets were where they should be. And I'm like, okay, in 4 weeks, what's going to happen? And on top of that, I'm trying to get people on board with a newer model. It's an adapted VOC model, but imagine like a very large workshop with all your handouts, your walkthroughs and stuff like that. And because no one's seen it, they don't know what to expect. And when you think the ticket price are constantly like giving away tools, 30 million SOPs, like literally you may as well give a pint of blood each from each of the speakers to sell the tickets, because it's tough out there, right? Most events, I don't think any events are sold out. Now, I can't turn around and say, yeah, but we sold out. That's no reflection on Prosper, because it's 2,000 people. It's not the same ballpark. But the sentiment across the board is the same, right? And the reason being as well, because margins are tighter, and then we've had the Trump tariffs. So when you think what happens with a brand, when you make cuts, yes, you can claim back expenses on when you buy tickets for events and that, but then if you don't go, there's more money there for inventory, and you don't know what's happening with the tariffs for most people.
It's a nice to have, not a need to have. That's, and the nice to haves go when
two things you're going to do.
Back to the corner.
Two things. The first two things to go when you run a business, in most cases, your networking events disappear, because that's a luxury when it compared to a survival business which is tight on margin, i.e. sellers at the moment, right? And then the other thing is going to be your supply chain of third-party vendors, whatever that may be, of hired services. So they're going to be two things that are going to have impact. And then you're going to throw that in with what's going on with tariffs. And obviously it will work out, but it's like Big C. We had that 2 years. We didn't know We knew when it started, but we didn't know it was going to stop, you know. And then you're brought indoors and back. So what it sets is you can't plan for something because you don't know the outcome. You can try, but there's so many variables you don't know. So you've got to build all that in, and then on top of that, a lot went on leading up to the event. For the last 30 days, I worked 16 to 18 hours a day, and I slept on the sofa out there just so that I could get back in here and work. And everything was falling apart. And I just had to keep going. There was a lot of stuff I won't necessarily go into. But it's one of those things, it shouldn't have come out the way it did if you were to judge it on what was leading in. And in the final week, I pulled 2 all-nighters on top of it. It wasn't perfect on the day, but people didn't see the imperfections as much as I did. But we pulled it off. And if you look at the socials and stuff, people were writing posts 2 weeks later. And I know people could talk about game changer and all this kind of stuff. But when the people that went there then got it, so next year won't be as difficult. They won't think it's a speed dating event, won't have. And, but on top of that, because of what was happening, I didn't just have the lead into an event like Seller Sessions. I was rolling out 6 different things because of the situation of reevaluating what I want to do with the business, cut back on inefficiencies, redevelop our next move forward. I had 6 things, including my work with Data Dive, which we've now rolled out into private beta. So I decided I'm just going to keep going. And even all the way up to the event, things were still not done until 3 o'clock in the morning to make that happen on the day. And then on the day I went on first, because I got 5 people to spend 5 months of their time in order to deliver this. It's my job to take the bullets, right? So I knew there was going to be problems. I didn't know what it was. And it doesn't matter if I look stupid, because who cares? So what was good about it is when I went on and it was kind of getting set up and sharing the documentation and getting everybody going, it was a little bit messy, right? But then it's easy for me because I don't care what people think. But what was important for me is that we've done a lot of work. We did rehearsals as well. And I wanted to make sure that the guys that invested all that time and believed in what we're doing could have a clean run. And what meant is that everything that went wrong when I was on, right? Not when Juan was on, not when Jeff, because they got less.
It was simple. Wi-Fi overloaded and document pages loading and things.
And screen being shrunk because it's been shared with the screen. But what happened was, because there was, by the time Juan was on, Glenn's picked it up, our AV, and all those problems disappeared. And in the break, me and Glenn had a conversation, which means it left the other guys to be flawless because they haven't done it as much as me necessarily. So what we've taken is, instead of like high profile people as you would expect, that's got stagecraft to a certain level, right? We've taken talent over profile. So we've risked it all by changing the model, not bringing in like the headliners like we did before, and I backed a crew and we went all the way in. So it was shit or bust. And that's the only reason to get me to do Seller Sessions again, because I'm tired. I don't want to, I didn't want to go through all the bullshit again, right? But the good news is what come off the back of that, on the Friday before, I booked a beautiful venue. So now I haven't got double dipping from venues. I don't have to have sponsors. It's a choice now. Not that I don't want sponsors. The core thing is that you get to choose because the tickets are no longer subsidized. And then off the back of it, what I was really happy about, we went hard. And if we didn't get an issue with Stripe, I won't go into it and give excuses, because the fact that we sold 80% of our tickets a year in advance for next year in 72 hours is a feat that's never been done.
Well, and it's
So
a testament to, and the reason that that happened was because of the people that were there and experienced it, myself included, right? So, like,
yeah,
I guess my take on it. So again, I think this was my either fourth or fifth. I spoke at each previous one. I think it was my fourth one.
yeah,
Spoke at the previous three. First of all, it was a joy just to go in and not have to have a presentation looming over my head. It's not really super stressful for me at this point, but it's still it's there, right? You can't enjoy the lead up quite as much if you know you got a presentation the next day. You know what I mean?
mm,
And you can't really let go until the event's over. So it was nice going in as a casual observer, first of all. So, but I think like I've been to, I don't know, 12 to 15 events somewhere in that specific to Amazon, and there's two common things that are always great about Amazon events. Number one, it's always great meeting people that you've never met before or that you've only known remotely or people that you've known before and you're reconnecting. Like just
hmm
it's nice. We've talked about this before, but it's lonely being behind these laptops and it really is fulfilling and it kind of feeds your soul from a social standpoint. So that's always great, regardless of what the content or format of an event is. The second thing that's always valuable about events is there's always nuggets. So there's not been one event that I haven't gotten some little nugget of which is typically going to cover the ROI of whatever your time investment and
mm,
financial investment is to attend an event. I think the challenge for me and what's gotten old for me, and maybe it's gotten old for you running events, Danny, and kind of wanting to mix it up is that it is a little bit like Groundhog Day. Like
mm,
it's like, okay, and like the problem for me is like I've been to events and I'll come out from events and either they give you PDFs of some of the presentations, but more often than not, I've got like 30 photos of slides that I thought were interesting that I take when I'm sitting at the event.
mm,
And again, I've got hardcore ADHD. I'm not an organized person. I get back and I have all these things. Oh, that was cool, whatever. And then guess what happens? Nothing.
yeah,
And that's on me. That's not on the event organizer. That's not on the presenters' content. It's just the structure of how a lot of us are wired is that all that cool stuff, all those nuggets, they rarely get implemented, right? And so for me, what was different about this event, number one, you've got all the social check boxes, which are going to happen at most events. I think you liven it up in terms of who you bring to the table. I think part of it being a UK European community as a
mm,
North American's nice because it's just a little bit it's softer, right? People are there just to make connections. It's not elbows up business oriented, which some of the ones in the US can be. But what was special about it for me was most events are these independent presentations again that can be great in their own right, or at least some of them are great. You've got nuggets that come out of it, but each one is kind of like their own book or their own movie. And I think what you did is you curated chapters of a cohesive narrative.
mm,
And so, and it wasn't, you didn't have to piece it together yourself. It was kind of an origin to end point, and it had a logical flow. Each person had a specialization, hyper unique, hyper obsessed about that particular area that could bring a level of gravity and knowledge to it that a non-subject matter expert couldn't. And you consolidated that into a universal story. And so what was, and with documentation and everything's there in a Notion document. So what was cool for me, number one, the content was super enlightening because you've got subject matter experts, again, people that you wouldn't otherwise see, which I like because
mm,
they're not trying to sell something. They're not just kind of great on stage. I'm not knocking people that are good on stage, but oftentimes those people are, and I shouldn't say oftentimes, there's many circumstances where those folks doing presentations don't necessarily practice what they preach. They're not in the trenches. They're not working on this stuff. Everybody that you brought to the table was a workhorse in their particular area. So it was exciting. I was learning this about what was the best about it. And literally the better part of the first week that I got back, I thought I was going to dedicate a day or two to it. I literally went through the entire journey again, but instead of watching it as an observer, all the documentation that was provided, and I'm basically just, it gave me a roadmap to execute on, and it was exciting and it was fun, and I'm learning. So it was learn it, absorb it once, got me excited about it, get back, and literally for a week, it was just kind of hammering on all this stuff. And now I'm at the point where I'm thinking about, okay, how do I make this my own in my own business? How do I train my team, etc. So anyway, kudos to you, man. Like I said, I believed in you because you're one of my good friends and you pull stuff off. So I had faith, but I was also just like, I didn't know how it was going to go. And it was beyond my expectations of how it was going to go. It was a really unique experience. to actually add value to my business. And I think that's why everybody that came out of it was like, holy shit, let's do this again. This was all. And that's probably why you had an 80% sellout in advance. But that was my experience, man, for what it's worth. Yeah.
No, thank you. I mean, generally the feedback's good. I always like to get feedback because I know I've got my shopping list of what it should have been, because you have a vision of something that you want to do. And then it happens, which is really basically a huge experiment that could go wrong at any second because it's in the unknown, right? So as someone like, let me give you an example, right? You can know your subject inside out. It doesn't make you a teacher, a lecturer, because the key parts of that, the number one aspect is retention. Can you communicate the information? Do they get to retain the information? So the way that that was designed was that you'll come to the event, visual, you'll see, right? Auditory, you're listening. Reading, you're going through whilst they're doing this. And then kinesthetic, which is through doing. So what we are able to do is to help with the short and the long-term memory. So when you go to an event and you write down notes on the slides and then you take pictures, and then the slides come like a few days after, once they're collated and they get sent out. There's a lot of post-event that it's never intentional, but it can take up to a few days to get the slides, right?
Yep.
But you add everything on the day. And my idea behind it was, you don't want to run home and fucking write SOPs and everything. My dream is that document that you had is that you can go to your team, get on with it. That's it. No meetings, no turning it into, because they've got walkthroughs and everything else. And that was very close, and it was in like ClickUp document. But I now know what to do for next year, because I'm actually been working on a VOC system, adapted VOC system with self-learning. So next year, the idea would be, if we can nail it, is you'll log in with authentication into your dashboard, and then you'll work from there, and it will increase the learning. The second reason to do it as well, because I know that I've got to be careful with what I say. A lot of people with networks and courses have had a nice little run this year on the courtesy of seller sessions, because I know the stuff will get shared, right? So basically, I've just provided a year's worth of content for other people outside of seller sessions, right? That's real talk, because people pick up slides and all that kind of stuff. It's not a problem, but but then next year I want to be able to tailor it more, and then it'll be facial recognition or authentication. Because what you want to avoid as well is, go on, you go to the event, we'll give you 100 quid each. And then no one comes to the event because they're all chipped in because they've got access. So I'm going to lock that down, and it's not fair on other people that bought a ticket. They should have the
speakers or the speakers that had a concentrated environment, safe environment with which they wanted to share their information in a trusted way.
Exactly. And that's why I can't,
because they're not selling stuff, they're providing information for free, and they're so then it's a problem, and I don't know how to solve it, but it sounds like you're on the path.
I mean, look, you're never going to completely stop it, but then if there's friction points where you've got facial rec, because everyone's got it on their phone or on or authentication, it's easier that way than people can be able to share it by other means. Even if you lock it down and they can't extract the information, it's still the information. They got it. So that stuff will never stop, and you can't stop it. But the good thing is, what it does show is when that information goes out there, people that are paying a lot more to attend events will go, fuck me, they did this and it was only 400 quid. Do you understand what I mean? So it's like, there's a lot, you always get like a perceived value, and I'm like, that's nonsense. Show them, give it to them, and then they make the decision. Don't try and tell them I'm giving you this. I mean, 2 years ago, how much would SOPs change hands for a 30 million brand? 5 grand, 3 grand, 1,000. That was just chucked in for free. And then you got tools. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like and then what Dorian show, his tool was fucking incredible. Do you know what I mean? That was like the finale at the end, but it can be so much better. But I think we'll get into this AI conversation. But there is a lot changing, and people are going to have to get on top of things. And what goes with the shift in search of what's happening now? I mean, on Clown World, it's like the gift that keeps on giving, because every week something happens with Rufus. We've got a new blueprint coming. It's not that, and it won't be displayed as like a 10,000 word article, but in a couple of months, it's something that is bigger than Rufus. I'm not saying when we drop it, it would make a splash or what of that. What I'm saying is what we're working on will take people out of left field, and it won't be presented that way. And then anyone could read it, because the science deniers don't want to look at it, because they're still peddling their proven strategies, which we know is a load of old bollocks. But it's finding a way, from what we did with me and Warner when we did the cold reality honeymoon period, that was quite dense for people, right? So then Rufus was easier to read. The next one will be even easier, and it's open for all sellers, because the reason I've been behind the science for 5 years, I've been the longest one pushing it. I've been ignored for 4 years and laughed at, mocked and everything else. And now we're getting the chance to build them in tools in what I would say the most respected software company in the industry. And that and what's happening, you're getting this change, and you're going to get a wave in the next 18 months. You'll see a wave over of, you're going to see a lot more Warners and Andrew Bells and Joes. Do you understand? Yeah. There'll be more of those guys.
And I say this affectionately, but the nerds are taking over, which is
absolutely.
How it should be.
Yeah. And you need to keep things fresh, right? So I've been in the game 10 years. So if AI is changing, we already know that agencies get the shit kicked out of them on Clown World, right? Because it's the divide and conquer thing. And look, so they should, a lot of them, right? So I'm not defending that, but what I'm saying is that you're going to reach, we're in the gap, and there's going to come a point where the science deniers, people say this, no, because they need to put out content for link bait, for you to click on, and then it's going to go like that. And if you haven't sat in the gap and at least tried, you are fucked. You are out the game, and that's what's going to happen, because it's taking over one thing at a time. As it goes through the industry, it's hitting, right? And it's only going to get faster. Never in history have we seen anything move so fast, right? But me and you, we've had two definitive change in history. The first one was when we were younger, is the internet, and now it's AI. Yep. And this hasn't been seen. So when you start thinking about the law of, our chips would compound in terms of speed.
Moore's law. Yeah.
Moore's law, exactly. It's gone out the window, right? Anything we think is like a year away, 2 years, 3 years, might be here tomorrow, right? And you are going to see this, like everything that I've studied and read about, it's crashing through. And I say this because I was in the music industry with MP3, and I watched that ricochet through the music industry in the early 2000s, right? It literally, the industry had to hit a switch in about 2 weeks. Once LimeWire went viral, it literally capitulated the industry. I watched it ricochet from top to bottom, from independent labels selling vinyl all the way up to the major labels. And they tried to hang on, and they tried to use copyright, all these outdated things. And we're going to see the same now, unless you get into AI and embrace it. And you should be able to embrace it. I mean, I'm going to let you talk now, but going back to the point, forget prompt engineering in the sense that focusing heavily on that. Start with asking the right question. I showed you off screen, right? That you can ask the right question that leads to that. And the reason I say that's not against prompt engineering and not against having structured prompts. What I don't want is people to feel inferior that they are not a prompt engineer, or they don't know how to prompt properly, therefore they leave it alone, because you can pretty much get what you want within reason out of AI to get the answers. So focus, if that's not your bag, work on asking the right question, because that's going to yield more benefits to you than being really, amazing at prompt engineering, but having shitty ideas or just copying what everyone else is doing and getting the same results,
Yeah. I mean, my thought on this, so again, I've tinkered with AI from in the early days, maybe before the average Joe did. And I always thought it was interesting, but in kind of a party trick way. So it was like, oh, that's kind of cute. Okay, like, interesting, and for me, the other challenge is it kind of got you 60% there. But for me, I never saw in the earlier stages of my experience tinkering with AI, the gap being filled from, okay, it's giving me something that I can actually execute on as a regular part of my day-to-day life or the regular part of my day-to-day business. And so that was the chasm. It was either wasn't quite good enough or it didn't cover the gap to actually implementation. And I've been cursory, like, if the new image generator thing came out, I'd tinker with, okay, cool. As a new model on one of the AI platforms came out for analysis, I tinker with, okay, cool. But for me, it never crossed that chasm. And really, thanks to you, in my experience at Seller Sessions, it was really just kind of a deep, immersive way to see how these tools can be used in a more sophisticated way that cut down on time and are actually executable and actionable. And those were some of the missing elements, right? Either it would have outputs that were a little bit off, or it just didn't cover the execution gap. And so I've been like deep diving in this for the past couple of weeks, and you know how deep the rabbit hole goes. And so I'm now a believer. And I think the way that I'm thinking about this, just to kind of use it, I grew up in the 90s too, when the internet came out, and like same kind of thing. People would tinker with it. Oh, that's kind of cool. I can like look up this, or I could order a pizza, but no one ever did the thing for a long time because it was more of a cute party trick. And then at some point it flipped and things caught up. I think that the same thing's happening with AI. It's just not going to be a 5 to 6 year transition. It's going to be a 1 to 2 year transition. And for me, what I think the implication is, first of all, I don't think there is some novelty in terms of the information and insights that AI gives that you don't get on your own, but that's not the interesting thing for me. The interesting thing for me is the speed with which it can help you execute on things. And so all the things that I'm kind of thinking about now and piecing AI into my life and my business, it's not necessarily novel in terms of new ideas. For me, it's more like, holy shit, there's 15 things I wanted to do, and I can actually do them, or I can do them faster, or I can repeat them. Whereas before, the limitation was capacity for me, time and capacity. My speed with which to execute it wasn't quick enough, or it wasn't repeatable enough, such that it wasn't worth the investment to do it. All those things get erased for me with how I'm thinking about this. And I'm still fairly rookie at this stuff, and I think I'll be able to share a lot more in the coming months as I start to kind of stress test this with some real world stuff. But how I'm thinking about this now is I think that there is a competitive advantage for sellers that really focus on this and take it seriously and learn. And I'm saying, I'm raising the flag to say now the time commitment's worth it. I didn't really see that lineage before, but I think it's an advantage for maybe 12 to 18 months, and then it's going to be the commodity. So either I think there's a short window of time where it can help give you a competitive advantage, but at some point it's going to be the table stakes. And if you don't have it, you're going to get basically fucked. And so I akin this to keyword research, right? Like keyword research, and this is a very specific, nuanced example, but like keyword research, if you were really dialed at keyword research, there was a couple of years where you could just dominate a lot of people on Amazon because you understood SEO in a deeper way that most sellers didn't understand. And then software tools came out, people kind of got new to the idea, and then like fast forward, and then Amazon changed the way that it was compiling information to where you still have to be good at keywords, but everyone else is good at it too. So what's your competitive advantage with keywords? You probably don't have one. I think AI is going to be similar. I think that we've got a stopgap here, if you take it seriously now, of probably 12 to 24 months where you could really have a competitive advantage. But the scarier thing that people need to realize, if you don't start to get on the train now, you don't get adept at it now, not only do you lose this advantage in the short term, but you're basically, anybody that doesn't do this is going to be so crapped out with operating costs and sophistication, speed of decision-making, quality of decision-making, quality of implementation, that you're going to be left behind. But the so what of it is, I'm crazy excited about it. A lot of it was inspired by some of the stuff that I saw at Seller Sessions, and I can't wait to really start to lean into this and start to see how it changes things in my business and how I operate my life, frankly, here over the next 3 to 6 months. It's going to be pretty profound. I'm a believer.
Yeah. I mean, because of the speed of the sophistication, like I said to you, it might sound, it doesn't sound orthodox, but I've just gone all in on Claude for the reason being is unsubscribing, subscribing to new tools every week. Yeah. You should have like a core tool set. And
agreed.
If you think about it, if you're unsubscribing, then learning new tools, resubscribing, checking that out, this model, that model, you're doing lots of learning, but you're not having a system that works for you. So I built Claude out as a hub. And my bet on this is, even if Claude doesn't have it yet, we're probably like 6 to 8 weeks away. So, but then you haven't got to switch and learn another system. And the reason I say that, which I give you the music analogy, when you think about creativity, you want a sketch pad, and it doesn't mean if you're a music designer coming up with concepts, systems, ideas, bots, whatever you want to do, that is still a creative endeavor, right? And what you want to be able to do is to do that as fast as possible. But you're not going to be able to do that if all you're doing is subscribing, unsubscribing, switching tools, changing everything around. You have to lock yourself in. And what I mean by that, perfect example, whenever you see perfect examples like hip hop producers, you know, when they've got the SP1200, they've got the drum machine, like they have got limited, they're limited themselves to a tool. Some have got the bigger studios, but they can bring up a beat and a sample, and they've laid down a track for the rapper in seconds because they know it inside out, right? Like instantly. So if you translate over to AI, then for me, back in when I was an engineer record producer, because on the laptop, the processing speed slower, I couldn't mix down vocals and I didn't have the studio speakers, so I'm wearing headphones. But I could literally, whether I'm on holiday or whatever, pull out the laptop, put down some ideas, and I've got the essence of the track. Then I'll take it to the big studio. Then I'll mix it there on the big mixing desk and the outboard and all that kind of stuff. And what I'm trying to encourage people to do is find something that you're good at, and then explore the maximum capabilities of that platform, because it forces you, the refinement there will increase your output because you'll get faster and faster and faster, right? So if you're sitting there and go all day going through all these different models and different platforms, you will get zero done, and you won't be able to get a technique that works for you, because anything that you do creative, you end up having a style, right? So it goes back to the thing with, in music, I'd have all the drum sounds that I like, and then the samples I like, and then you might use that snare twice. But that could be anything from, you built these projects in Claude, or you're using custom bots in ChatGPT, but it's the ability to spin stuff up really fast and catch that moment, because that part there, that foundational idea is not lost then. You're not fucking around trying to find the right model for this and reasoning for that. I think if you can do that, then you're honing in, you'll get good at that, and it reduces like the distraction process. Yeah. So that I think will be key as well, because I think if we've got shiny object syndrome, and then you think that sellers do not have enough time, they'll add their long lists and they won't get round to it, right? And they will listen to podcasts and that's great, but you've got to be able to filter down what's important, what's going to move the needle. And it comes back to asking the right question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with you completely, because I think there is, and that's been part of why I've probably been slower to adapt fully in terms of going all in with AI, is that it's just too much, man. It's like there's so many tools, and this thing came out with one, and it's like, which horse do you pick? And then now Google has announcements on Gemini, and then Claude has a new thing, and then ChatGPT has one. And like, anyway, it was like, for me, I was just kind of like, I'm just going to take a step back here and wait for the dust to settle a little bit. The reality is the dust isn't going to settle. And so I think that choosing a platform that aligns best, and I'm kind of in Manus camp for certain stuff, and then Claude is kind of my G Suite, so to speak, and to use kind of that terminology, if people can wrap their heads around it. But you got to pick a lane, and then you got to just go and execute on it. And I think, yes, there's some that are better and things might change here and there, but I think that generally speaking, the big horses probably aren't going away. And there's 3 or 4 of them. So it's like pick a horse that aligns with you now and go all in with it and commit for 6 months. And you're going to be better off doing that, even if that decision lapses from technical advancements versus another one. You're probably not going to witness it as a Joe Schmo anyway. So I agree with that. I think that's a really critical thing, because it's what you kind of alluded to. People procrastinate by consumption. And people procrastinate in the world of AI by tinkering and by kind of floating between different things. I'm going to dabble here, then I try this one. Oh, this new thing came out. I'm going to kind of play with that for a day and a half, but they never actually executed on the business. Yeah. And so a way to, not procrastinate by consumption is you just act, and you should make a decision and go for it. And I think that's an important step that I had to make too.
Yeah. And what you also got to realize as well, and I've said it a number of times, don't get gassed on AI. Engineers are not scared. They're using it and 10xing what they're doing. The point in saying that, let's say that you want to use Make, N8N, you want to run dashboards, you need APIs. This stuff is like, it's Toy Town for a half decent basic level engineer. And you'd be surprised. Let's say that you want to learn N8N, but there's that learning curve and you don't have the time. Then you just get someone off Upwork that can help you with that, and then set up the agents that you need. Spend that $120. We're not talking big money. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that you can do, even if it's a minimal cost. And then there's plenty of AI programs out there that you can get a mind map done. You can just write prompts and pull up a mind map and say, look, I want something like this. I've got a Gmail account. I've got this, and this. This is what I want to do. And then they'll put it together for you. It's not, it's not difficult for proper engineers. But what we do as, say, non-programmers, engineers, about experience. We see AI and we go, we can do anything with AI. But then AI is not always relevant for everything because of sustainable outputs. And there are times when all you might need is to use a Zapier plugin. Right. So you just, whether it's a webhook or whatever, use Zapier. That solves that big problem in your business that, you spent time on. So I've mentioned this before. I'll give you a good example. I've now saved 25 hours a week in any form of bookkeeping, whether I'm involved, where I'm in my inbox doing invoices. So I had engineers to knock up a tool that does like the mail forwarding. And I've got a AI software that speaks to Xero, right? Because I didn't want to keep logging into the banks, getting the statements, like we're talking high street traditional banks. So I've moved banks. So basically we had this big chart and every single part of it is now evaporated, right? So gone. That's 100 hours a month on something that pisses me off no end because I hate accounting.
Yeah.
And so now I don't have to go into my inbox, look for receipts. So I've got 3 email addresses. One goes to 2 inboxes would be receipts for one business. And it's just messy. And you want to set up forwarding. And then when you use things like Dext, it's called, that like these ones that forward the invoices, they're based on rules-based system. There's no context. So the software that I got, we add across both businesses. When we set it up, there's a self-learning process to it, right? So I got the accounts team, and across both businesses, there was 3,000 transactions, which is for like your nominal codes and stuff. And that's trained it now. So by next week, what will happen as invoices, receipts come into the inbox, it then gets picked up because it's AI based and it's with a prompt. I'm not sure how much it's going to cost that bit. Maybe 150 quid, right? And that's money well spent. That then goes to the software. This software works like a Dex, but it's not a rules-based system. It's got the context now. It selects the right nominal codes, all that stuff, posts to Xero, and then I built some dashboards, plugged in the API, or we're plugging it in this week, and then I've got real-time dashboards. So everything I want to see at a glance. So you've got no reconciliation. You've got no cross-referencing with statements. You've got no forwarding receipts, invoices, downloading, labeling them, manually entry, all that stuff's gone. So completely wipe that out, because you can use N8N, you can use Make, and then you can set it up so that you can send messages to your mum on, through Telegram or through WhatsApp, or you can build something that's going to take away the pain. Yeah. So it's just working out, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to just another tool to write another listing? Or do you want to use it for something, that really moves the needle? So I think there's plenty of opportunities to sellers sit down, think about, ask the right question. Yeah. It always starts with the right question, but you've got to get that framework to get to that right question. When you do that, it then starts to unpack. And don't be afraid of hiring someone off Upwork and stuff. I don't think people realize how cheap it is for a mid-level person that's charging you $30 an hour to do this, to take all that pain out of your business.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, final thoughts. What's coming up for you before we?
I mean, I'm finally going to have an address after 2 years kind of being nomadic. I've been in Austin since November, but finally kind of have a lease on an apartment coming up in the middle of June. So really, really excited to have an address. I mean, I think there's a lot of benefit to being nomadic, but I got to say, you feel ungrounded. You're kind of always a little bit in the ether. Like I even finally have a monitor here, like the little things that you forget. So I'm really excited about that. I've got one last trip to Canada, then I'm going to Colorado, but I get back on the 16th. And then from that point on for 2-3 months, finally have like a, established grounded home base with a physical address. So that's it for me, man. Super excited about it. Again, I'm kind of all in on AI, probably the next 2-3 months, and really going to re-engineer a lot of things in how we operate that I think are going to be super beneficial. And it's exciting again. It's getting the blood flowing. So that's it for me, man. How about you?
Well, rolling out all the rest of this stuff, all my work with Data Dive, we're going to start seeing more and more stuff come through. It's in private beta. So we'll see that in a few weeks, which I'm excited about because it's gone from 5 years from science paper to end user tools in what I would say the most respected software in the industry. So that's good. That's a loop that starts to close because then you've got people using it, and because obviously the common one, but it's just science. And now hopefully we can turn it into stuff, and then people would understand and they benefit from it and they get the output they desire. So that's good. As I said, all of these rollouts, restructuring of everything, I've mentioned before, Manis solved 6 areas of problems of my business. So now, like for instance, seller sessions, even if we didn't put the tickets on sale, I've saved myself 70% of the costs. And I'll go back to making a clearer margin on it because my costs were rising and rising. So for instance, the last one, as an example, I paid double for the food because I wanted the food in-house. So that cost me twice as much for the same food. I paid twice for AV. So I have to use theirs and mine. The higher the event is expensive. And then we had all the things with the multi-tiers, with the tickets and the problem with the site. So we've just rolled out, or we're rolling out at the moment. So the sites, to cover these problems, we're plugging in OpenAI as well. And so the ticketing site will be working, functioning, and we've basically simplified the business. So 90% of the labor of seller sessions live and the delivery of that is gone because we did 2 things. One, we've able to automate a lot of the areas, update the tools, and 2, slimline. So basically 1 ticket, 1 venue. And then obviously we did the discount code for the 72 hours. So 1 ticket, 1 venue, 1 discount code. You haven't got super early birds, general admission, AI workshop, dinner. And so next year, this beautiful building that we've got, it's in 3 parts. It's going to be modular. And my engineer, Glenn, who does the AV, worked at Fabric and Ministry of Sound. He's a lighting engineer. And so the way it will work in the day, it's going to be the workshop stroke format like conference. So although we've been changing the model, we're changing it so it won't be anything like you think is it as a conference, right? So what will happen, that 1 ticket, you got the conference, into the networking, into the dinner, into the drinks, all in the same building. What happens, it rolls over, it's modular. So I run the simulation plan in Manis so that where we're using, right? It's quite exciting because we're able to do that first bit, program so it switches over, so it finishes, you go into your networking, then into a buffet dinner, and then you go into your drinks, and then so all the way through. You can go back to your hotel and stuff if you want, but we've made it completely modular. So part of that is we've reduced not only a shit ton of costs, probably 70% savings in costs. I can then decide whether I have sponsors or not have sponsors. That's nothing to do with not wanting sponsors. It's the fact that if next year, the way that the things are going, and then that shrinks up, then you haven't got a viable model if you're relying on sponsorship to bring down the ticket price. So I had to rethink that. Is yes, we did increase the price a little bit, but it's actually cheaper than it would be if you bought the dinner separate and the conference, like 2 tickets together with that discount. So now with that in mind, we can focus on delivering the creative part of it. And it's taking pressure off to sell out in advance. And we get rid of that January to May where the pressure's on and it's a grind. Because when you do events, you know, depending on the timing, you go all the way up to the day and you don't fully know. Do you know what I mean? And I know we sold out 2 weeks in advance. But what was interesting about that as well, when we sold out, 2.5 weeks in advance. And then I had a waiting list. But what I found out on that waiting list, because the way I filter it, for every 20 people on the waiting list, there were only 2 sellers. And to me, that's a problem. And on top of that, I've had the mothership reach out 7 times since January, and it's been a no, a polite one.
And hey, Danny, I hate to do this, dude, but I gotta go here in like a minute or two.
I'll cut this bit out.
So we can, okay. Yeah. It's all good. Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Yeah. So we had the situation where, as I said, Amazon's reached out a lot of times, 7 times, and have reached out again. But for me, it's like I want Amazon to come to the table that's beneficial for sellers. But look, we'll wrap here. We'll get together again in a few weeks. Any final thoughts or details before we go?
No, dude. Well, congrats on a well-executed event. I know that there's obviously a million headaches and things behind the scenes that you had to deal with, and but you pulled it off. It was super enjoyable. Can't wait till next year. I think that's why it's 80% sold out. But and back to business, man. I'm excited to see what you cook up next.
Yes. Well, I'll keep everyone informed, but it's exciting times when you've been pushed in, like sellers. The service provider community has to reevaluate because their living comes from the sellers. If the seller's affected, it affects everyone else, and the sellers drive the community. They're the heartbeat. So I'll leave it there.
Cool, man.
All right. Take care. I'll see you soon. Thank you guys for joining us. I'll be back here next year. Much love. Bye.
Cool.